During our family gathering, my spouse announced to the group that he was leaving me for my sibling. They'd carried on a secret relationship for years. I just acknowledged it quietly and suggested, "Kindly look at your inboxes immediately." The expressions on their faces as the reality sank in were priceless. Greetings to all. I appreciate you joining me here. It required considerable time for me to reach a stage where sharing this felt possible. For ages, the story lodged deep inside, a tight bundle of deceit and hurt. Yet I realized that certain viewers could be enduring their private struggles, and perhaps this account might offer a bit of encouragement. Prior to diving in, I'd be curious about the locations you're tuning in from. Drop it in the comments if you'd like. I'm Kesha Sterling, an expert in digital forensics, essentially meaning I specialize in uncovering concealed realities within devices and networks. I piece together online histories. I trace virtual footprints. My success stems from being systematic, enduring, and attuned to details that escape others. I could never have imagined that my toughest investigation would involve my own union. The chaos erupted on a cool Sunday in October at my dad's 65th birthday meal. The home buzzed with the usual warm familial disarray. The savory scent of Mom's honey-glazed ham and sweet potatoes wafted everywhere, blending with the fresh-baked carrot cake cooling nearby that I'd prepared. Chuckles drifted from the living room where relatives cheered on the game, and the low hum of discussions formed a melody etched in my memory. It painted an ideal image of kinship, of routine, of flawless deception. I recall observing my husband Brandon amid the bustling dinner spread. As a child anesthesia specialist, he struck me as kind and empathetic after 7 years together. Or at least that's what I'd convinced myself. He held the crowd spellbound, as always, recounting a challenging procedure that gripped everyone's attention. Abruptly, he lifted his utensil and lightly chimed it off his wine stem. The crisp tone sliced the din. "I've got something to share," he declared. The buzz halted at once. Every gaze shifted his way. Drawing on my work instincts, I scrutinized his features, even then. I caught the faint quiver in his grip as he set the spoon aside. I noticed his glance dart briefly to my spirited, stunning younger sister Sasha, before settling on a distant point high on the opposite wall. My pulse stayed even, thudding with a deliberate, weighted cadence, a solo burden I'd shouldered through 6 grueling months. Brandon drew in a breath. His tone grew steadier, polished. "Kesha and I are separating," he stated. A shared intake of breath rippled through the group. Mom's palm pressed to her heart. Aunt Vivian murmured, "Oh dear." Dad's bushy brows furrowed deeply. His look conveyed bewilderment. "I hadn't intended to reveal it like this," Brandon went on, assuming the role of the sorrowful, hesitant partner. "But with us all assembled," he trailed off, letting the surprise linger. Then came the ultimate shattering revelation. "And there's additional news," he continued. He extended his arm over the rolls and sauce vessel, clasping the fingers of Sasha, my own sister, the vibrant and alluring one. "Sasha and I have developed deep feelings for each other." The ensuing quiet was total, so profound that the fridge's drone from the next room became audible. Mom's stunned murmur, "Oh my God," finally pierced it. Suddenly, all attention in the space focused on me. They anticipated it. The outburst, the sobs, the shouts, the finger pointing, perhaps even smashing Mom's fine dishes in a theatrical display. They wanted the fitting reaction in their scripted drama, the stunned, frantic, devastated spouse. But I refused to oblige. Rather, I met each stare steadily. With poise, I took a drink from my glass, then delivered the phrase that would unravel their tidy scheme in 9 simple words. "Everyone, please review your emails at once." Brandon's assured grin faltered. Bewilderment crossed his features. "Emails?" he queried, tone laced with doubt. "Which ones?" "I forwarded them moments before the meal," I answered evenly, retrieving my device. "They ought to be in your accounts already." In an instant, the tale they believed they controlled shifted entirely to me. It's remarkable how thoughts operate under pressure. In that hushed, dazed space, while relatives tentatively grabbed their handsets, my reflections drifted 8 years earlier to a fundraiser ball at the Children's Hospital of Atlanta. The venue glittered with elites in lavish attire. I attended on behalf of my cybersecurity company, fresh from contributing an upgraded protection setup to the facility. And there he was, Brandon, striking yet somewhat awkward informal wear. He skipped the donor schmoozing. Instead, he lingered in a secluded spot, converse. He spoke to a young girl in a wheelchair, drawing out her laughter until she let out a snort. There was this unique glow to him, an authentic warmth that felt scarce and true. He explained he worked as a pediatric anesthesiologist, guiding kids into sleep ahead of operations. He'd grasp their hands and become the initial sight they encountered upon awakening. Who wouldn't be smitten by someone so compassionate? Our bond formed right away, powerful and profound. That evening, we chatted endlessly about all sorts of topics, meaningful and mundane alike. 12 months on, we tied the knot in an intimate, beautiful gathering in my folks' backyard, beneath the ancient, wide-branching oak I'd scrambled up in my youth. Those initial days were magical, the sort depicted in films where you wonder if such bliss truly exists. We snapped up a craftsman-style house needing repairs in the northern Atlanta outskirts and devoted our weekends to it, splattered in paint and wood shavings as we transformed it side by side. We'd bicker about hues for the walls and chuckle until our ribs ached. His role as a physician demanded grueling routines. The extended shifts came with the territory, yet he invariably carved out moments for our life together. I recall a particularly rough stretch at my job. The big project was stalling, leaving me utterly drained. I dragged myself through the door on a late Friday, bone-tired and on the verge of crumbling. The place was pitch black, and briefly dread hit me, assuming he was out. Then I spotted them. A path of flickering tea lights stretching from the entryway across the den and onto the patio. He'd arranged a cozy spread with a quilt, cushions, and a stargazing scope. Inside a hamper, he'd tucked my go-to Napa Valley Cabernet alongside artisanal Gouda. We lingered there beneath the night sky for hours, his arms around me as he simply tuned in. He skipped offering solutions to my woes. Instead, he shouldered their burden with me. He'd slip messages onto my computer lid. Enjoy your day. Love you always. His epic weekend brunches came with off-key tunes bouncing off the walls while he turned flapjacks. I'd never experienced such security, such tender care, or such profound affection before. That's the partner I chose. That's the world we crafted as a duo. And that's the recollection I held tight to. The bedrock I trusted was unbreakable, yet rested on shifting dunes. The initial fissure emerged 3 years back. Back then, it masqueraded as family support. My sibling Sasha had forever been the wandering type. As I focused on advancing my profession and forging a steady existence, she wandered aimlessly. She quit university on 2 occasions. She hopped between locales, New York, Miami, Chicago, and switched jobs at a frantic pace. She chased fulfillment endlessly but rarely grasped it. So when she rang me in tears from a Chicago depot after yet another flop in her quest for purpose, my spirit shattered. She was penniless, isolated, and broken. Head back here, I urged, to Atlanta. Crash with us till you're steady again. I brought it up with Brandon that same evening. He paused, and I ought to have heeded that pause more closely. He perched on the counter, skimming health periodicals. "You certain about this, Keisha?" he queried, eyes still down. "Bringing another person into our space, even your kin, could alter things between us." "She's blood, Bran," I shot back, a touch sharp. "No other options for her. We look out for our own. It'll be brief, just a few months." At last, he met my gaze with that disarming grin that softened me every time. "All right," he agreed. "Your call, whatever works." What began as a temporary 2-month arrangement dragged on to half a year. Sasha snagged work at a nearby gallery soon enough. but insisted Atlanta's exorbitant housing costs outstripped her slim paycheck. "Building my savings, Kay, swear it," she'd insist. "Need just a bit more time." Truth be told, initially, it didn't bother me. I'd longed for tighter ties with her. Our hectic routines had pulled us apart. Her vibrant whirlwind vibe sparked something in our quiet routine, a void I hadn't noticed till then. It brought energy. Temporarily, it mimicked a vibrant household. I thrilled at reclaiming my sister. How innocent I was. I'd invited the Viper right into our midst. Hindsight stings in its own cruel way, right? It lays bare every detail. Those subtle hints, the warnings you brushed off, now align like an accusing lineup, arrowing toward the harsh reality. Once Sasha settled in, dynamics began to evolve. Subtly, stealthily, it slipped past me. Brandon picked up extra hours. Urgent procedures, tough diagnoses, sudden meetings. Tied to a healer, I accepted the demands. I never probed. I'd warm his meal in the stove and retire early. Sasha's outings ballooned beyond reason. A market run ballooned into a full afternoon. "Bumped into a buddy from way back," she'd chirp, face rosy. They started sharing private quips, coded words, and subtle looks over meals. There was this subtle exclusion that left me on the outside. I'd step into the living room and catch my husband and sister mid-conversation, only for their words to hush the instant I appeared. The atmosphere grew heavy, electric, like I'd stumbled into a confidential exchange. Whenever I inquired about their discussion, the response came back identical and elusive. Nothing major. One backyard barbecue with the family stands out in my mind. While fetching extra potato salad in the kitchen, my mom drew me close, her gaze fixed on the window with a furrowed brow. "You realize," she murmured softly, "Brandon and Sasha really click." I peered out. He was assisting her with the badminton setup, chuckling as his palm lingered on her shoulder, while demonstrating the proper grip on the racket. "Why wouldn't they?" I responded, truly baffled. "Isn't that great?" "Sure, it's great." Mom gave a casual lift of her shoulders. "Not all guys mesh with their spouses' relatives. Count your blessings." Blessed. I figured I was fortunate. My partner and sibling had bonded. The house buzzed with more energy. My closest pal Dion picked up on it too. Over lunch one afternoon, my cell buzzed. Sasha was ringing Brandon's phone, which he'd left behind in my vehicle by mistake. It marked the third call that morning over some minor issue. Dion eyed me curiously as I picked up. Once I ended the call, she swirled her iced tea and warned, "Kesha, watch yourself." Watch out for what? I chuckled. "I wouldn't allow my sister to cozy up like that to my man," she stated bluntly. I nearly took offense. "Dion, that's not the situation. Sasha's reliant, that's all. She admires him. Plus, it's Brandon." The unspoken message hung there. Brandon wouldn't ever cross me. He was far too upright, loyal, kind. I reminded myself to avoid turning into the suspicious, envious spouse. If he and Sasha went quiet upon my arrival in a space, it must have been happenstance. If he swiftly tucked away his device upon a notification, it was merely professional matters he spared me from. After all, trust formed the bedrock of our union. I held on to that trust desperately, like a lifeline, oblivious to how deeply I was already sinking. The revelation happened by chance. No explosive showdown or nagging intuition, just the ordinary. It was a Tuesday evening, 6 months prior to that disastrous family gathering. Brandon was covering a shift at the medical center, and I was remote working to wrap up a document. Opting for delivery food, I noticed my phone had died. Without a second thought, I snatched his computer from the study. I launched the web browser. It defaulted to reloading his last tabs, and suddenly his private inbox stared back at me, unlocked. I wasn't hunting for secrets. No doubts propelled me to pry. My hand paused above the pad to shut it down, but one header snagged my attention. From Sasha, titled merely, "Last night." A chill surged through my veins. Defying all logic screaming in my mind, I selected it. and the secure reality I'd meticulously constructed crumbled to pieces. The message laid it bare. No room for doubt. "Last night was amazing," Sasha had typed. "You're stuck in my head. I can still sense your touch on my skin." The breath escaped me in a whoosh. My sight tunneled. I continued downward. His response, dispatched from his mobile that very afternoon. "We need to exercise more caution," Brandon noted. "I don't want to harm Kay." "But you're on my mind constantly, too." I pressed on through the chain. I absorbed the full exchange with an eerie, gut-wrenching numbness, as though dissecting case files for my job rather than confronting the ruin of my existence. The correspondence stretched back more than 2 years, predating her arrival under our roof. Even from Chicago, they'd schemed, texted, daydreamed. Her relocation to Atlanta and residence with us wasn't out of necessity. It was deliberate. 2 years of betrayal, 2 years of clandestine rendezvous, veiled wording, fabrications, endless deceptions. They'd carried on practically in plain view, within these walls, possibly sharing our sheets. I snapped the lid shut, skipping the meal altogether. I remained planted in the shadows of his desk seat, the leather creaking under me for what seemed an eternity. The home's quiet roared in my ears. All the joyful recollections from those recent years turned sour, contaminated. Each extended hospital stint, every chore Sasha handled, every sly look I'd brushed off, they aligned with brutal precision. That evening, upon his return, I scanned his features for traces of the unfamiliar figure I'd unearthed. Any hint that this guy who pecked my temple and inquired about my routine could author those notes to my own kin. Yet he appeared unchanged. That familiar kind grin lit his face. His stare carried the usual soft warmth. "Everything all right?" he queried, picking up on my quiet demeanor. "Rough work day." "Just worn out," I answered, my tone echoing empty and remote, even to me. He acknowledged it, utterly unaware. And as I observed him navigate our space, our routine with such effortless assurance, all while concealing this nightmare, once I uncovered their scandalous secret, it hit me that the husband I'd wed was nothing but an illusion. He wasn't real. In that instant, I understood that mere revelation wouldn't suffice. I refused to simply call them out. That played right into their scheme, their twisted storyline. Instead, I'd lean on my strongest skill. I'd record it all meticulously. Over the following weeks, I existed in a haze. Emotions lurched from soul-crushing agony to an eerie, detached chill. I'd jolt awake at 3 a.m., pulse racing wildly. Phrases from their messages seared into my thoughts. How had I missed it all? By day, I drifted like a specter, functioning mechanically. I'd head to the office, cook meals, exchange words that rang hollow and rehearsed, sharing space with a total unknown. Yet I had to act as if life was unchanged. Deep down, a tiny, frantic sliver of me clung to hope. Perhaps it was mere imagination, nothing more. Maybe they'd never cross that line. But the instincts honed by my career, the traits that excelled in my field, proved tough to suppress. Subtly at the outset, I started compiling evidence. It began modestly. Handling our online payments, I spotted a transaction on the shared credit card for a chic hotel in the city center, the sort ideal for lovers' escapes. It dated to a Wednesday midday when Brandon insisted he faced endless operations. I captured a screen grab of the bill that became my first piece. My probe grew systematic. I activated his phone's location tracking, a feature we'd set up ages back for security and then ignored. Whenever he said he was stuck at work overtime, a fast glance revealed his marker at a eatery in a distant area. Or, far worse, pinpointed to the spot I soon learned was Sasha's fresh residence. She'd relocated just months prior, a shift that now made perfect sense as cover for their tryst. I cataloged each falsehood. I matched his professional calendar against billing records. I flagged their chance encounters, far too regular to be random. The proofs mounted, incriminating and utterly bleak. Their liaison wasn't just ongoing, they botched the cover-up badly, as though anticipating my ignorance, or simply indifferent to detection. The nadir struck roughly 2 months post-email find. Brandon announced a weekend symposium for doctors in Charleston, South Carolina. That icy twist gripped my gut again. A swift online hunt turned up no event. Come Saturday dawn, I perched in my vehicle opposite a swanky inn downtown, the very one from the card charge. Barely 20 minutes passed. I saw them arrive in his ride. Giggles echoed as he parked. He stepped out, circled to her side, swung open the door. His palm rested lightly on her lower back, entering together. A familiar, tender move that twisted the knife. It resembled viewing footage from another person's drama. With firm grip on my device, I snapped shots. Snap, snap, snap. I filed them away in my expanding online archive, tucked in a hidden directory labeled Case 734 on my laptop. That evening, he returned tardy, spinning detailed tales of the gathering, dull lectures, subpar cuisine. I merely acknowledged, warmed his meal from earlier, and absorbed his fabrications. "You seem wiped out," I remarked, gaze fixed on the subtle lip color streak on his shirt. It matched her hue. I recognized it right away. "Quite the ordeal," he concurred, clasping my fingers over the table. "Glad to be back, though." The warmth in his touch, the effortless deceit, the bold nerve of it almost shattered me. Softly, I withdrew. "Rest up," I suggested, as he slumbered peacefully next to me that night, breaths rhythmic, a beast in our sheets. I resolved it all. No way I'd grant them the thrill of my anguish or fury. Not now. I'd keep amassing facts. I'd fortify my dossier until it stood unassailable, ironclad, beyond dispute. And at the right juncture, the exposure wouldn't devolve into a personal, chaotic showdown they could deny. It would unfold openly. It would prove incontestable. And it would happen entirely under my control. 3 months into this dual existence, I chose to probe the depths. I wanted to gauge his response, unearth the full extent of the betrayal. I cornered him tactfully, like grilling a resistant source in a probe. I picked a time of weakness, post-grueling hours, mellowed by wine. We lounged on the veranda rocker one evening, breeze mild and inviting. It evoked our blissful past. For a beat, authenticity flickered. "We need to discuss Sasha," I ventured lightly, tone steady. I sensed his frame stiffen beside me, a minuscule jolt, yet unmistakable. "What about her?" he replied warily. "You've grown awfully tight with her recently," I observed, studying his features in the faint glow. He let out a laugh, but it rang a touch contrived, brittle. "She's family, Kay, your sibling, naturally." "We're almost there. She's like family." "No, I mean truly tight, Brandon." I turned to face him directly, locking eyes. I maintained that stare, channeling all my unspoken awareness into it. "Got something you need to share?" For a brief instant, a shadow crossed his gaze. Maybe fear, awareness, or even remorse. In that optimistic, naive beat, I imagined he might admit the decent guy I wed was still alive beneath the deception. But in a flash, the facade returned. His face stiffened. His stare grew icy. "I have no idea what you're getting at, Keisha, and I don't like it," he replied sharply, his tone laced with superiority. "Sasha's dealing with plenty right now. She often seeks my input as a pal, as her sister's husband. If you're feeling unsure about anything, that's your issue. Perhaps reflect on why trust has suddenly eroded." Classic gaslighting, flawlessly deployed. The swift rejection, the twist of the story, the shift of fault, casting me as the unstable, envious spouse. It was seamless, habitual. It nearly shook my confidence. Nearly. Yet I held the evidence. I had the images. I had the facts secured in File 734. I just met his eyes and gave a deliberate nod. "You're probably correct," I murmured softly. It might be all in my head. He eased up right away, convinced of his triumph. He draped an arm over my shoulders, drawing me in. "Come on," he whispered gently. "You and I are solid. Never question that." I allowed the embrace, my frame stiff and distant. I sensed only a profound, icy void. My spouse wasn't merely unfaithful. He was a schemer, and this extended beyond infidelity. It was a clash of truths, and I alone recognized its start. My gentle probe at confrontation appeared to rouse them, like stirring a wasp's hive, sparking their retaliatory strike. A barrage of deceit so brutally clever, it bordered on admirable. Sasha began phoning me often. "Hey, sis," she'd say, "nail salon this weekend? Or check out that fresh show at the museum. We'll make it a duo." Her words oozed fake, cloying cheer that set my teeth on edge. She aimed to craft a fresh tale, portraying us as inseparable siblings, rendering my doubts utterly implausible. The nadir came when she attempted matchmaking. At an art opening, she tugged me toward an artist, unattached. "Kesha overworks herself," she noted with a sympathetic grimace. "Brandon agrees she ought to socialize more, enjoy life." The viciousness, pushing me toward others while betting my partner, was breathtaking. She didn't just betray, she taunted. Brandon, meanwhile, amplified his own ruses. They even enlisted my mom as a tool in their ploy. I'll always recall the call from her, brimming with glee. "Listen, dear, I've got news, but act shocked, okay?" she urged. "What's up, Mom?" I replied, dread pooling in my gut. "Sasha stopped by earlier and hinted she's with Brandon plotting a huge anniversary gift for you. Maybe a getaway." Ice surged through my veins. Our anniversary loomed 4 months out. "She's kept it hush-hush," Mom went on, unaware. "But she said they've coordinated for months, gathering to hash out plans. Isn't it touching how your sibling and spouse bond to pull this off? Months of scheming, sessions with my mom unwittingly drawn into their yarn. They had surpassed mere liaison. They were methodically reshaping our kin's world, bending those nearby, stranding me in their deceitful snare. This transcended impulsive wrongdoing. It was a plot. That conversation forged resolve within me. The fading ache and grief evaporated, replaced by a sharp, steely fury that sharpened my focus. Exposure alone wouldn't suffice. I aimed to shatter their fabricated world, fragment by fragment, before every soul they deceived. They sought to steer the story. Very well, I deliver a tale they'd eternally regret. I chose to escalate. No more veiled cues or quiet watching. I required proof of his limits. One evening, prior to his arrival, I intentionally scattered clues on the counter, traces of his treachery, a hotel bill copy, select message captures, damning yet not overt. I set them beside his correspondence, impossible to overlook. Then I sat in the den, pulse racing, braced for the storm that would shatter the silence. Time dragged. I caught his entry, the chime of keys, the shuffle as he... Checking the mailbox. Quiet. An oppressive, drawn-out quiet. At last, he stepped into the sitting room. His face didn't show rage or remorse. It was serious, weighty. He appeared like someone shouldering a tremendous load. "We have to discuss this," he stated, settling into the chair opposite mine. "Indeed, we should," I replied. An odd wave of ease swept through me. The pretense had come to an end. "I've uncovered something disturbing," he went on, his tone strained with apparent anguish. He set a file down on the low table separating us. I reached for it, bracing for the clues I'd planted. But what I extracted was a bundle of printed messages. Correspondence from my coworker Marcus to me. They were straightforward notes on assignment due dates and tech problems, yet they'd been tampered with. He'd cherry-picked snippets, stripped away backgrounds, and pieced them back to mimic playful, affectionate, damning dialogues. He'd fabricated signs of a romance to confront me with. "I know about you and Marcus," Brandon declared, his words laden with phony grief. How long has this affair lasted, Kay? Those endless evenings at work. Everything clicks into place now. The moment felt so bizarre, so deviously timed that laughter nearly escaped me. This went beyond mere diversion. It was an advanced maneuver. He was building his excuse. He was crafting a tale in which my alleged unfaithfulness had sorrowfully driven him toward my sibling. He was positioning himself as the injured party. Marcus and I share nothing like that, I responded, my tone eerily calm. Those exchanges are strictly professional, and you realize it. They strike me as awfully personal, he shot back, his head wagging in feigned disappointment. I simply can't fathom you'd betray us this way. The deliberate cruelty of his scheme sent shivers down my spine. Right then, I realized straight up challenging him wouldn't cut it. He and Sasha had woven their deceptions too deeply. They'd refuse, redirect, and warp the facts until their made-up story overtook the truth. They'd destroy me completely to protect their skins. I believe, he added, grasping my hand with scripted worry, that we ought to spend some time separated. This setup isn't beneficial for anyone involved. A surge of apparent ease crossed his features as I didn't withdraw. I followed the script. I allowed him to keep holding on. A break could help, I murmured softly. He pressed my hand tighter, his expression one of profound commiseration. It's not about pointing fingers, the expert deceiver demonstrated in motion. Occasionally, couples just grow distant. He hesitated, then landed the closing, impeccably scripted remark. Sasha suggested I use her spare bedroom temporarily while we sort this. Naturally, she had. Their scheme meshed flawlessly. He mistook my subdued agreement for defeat. He believed victory was his. He couldn't have been more mistaken. While he savored his cleverness, I was already shifting gears in my mind toward the next stage of my probe. The rules had shifted, and they remained clueless about the storm I'd soon release. The day Brandon hauled his belongings away ranked among the oddest in my existence. He stuffed a few bags, humming a light-hearted, unaware melody, behaving as though this were an ordinary, friendly split. Sasha dropped by to assist, casting me glances of mock sympathy and understanding that nearly drove me to yell. They brimmed with assurance in their stage performance, utterly convinced of their plot. "Take as long as you require, sis," she remarked, enveloping me in a stiff, insincere embrace. The instant their vehicle departed, I called in sick from the job. As they imagined me secluded at home, drowning in sorrow, I was heading into the city center. My goal was the workspace of Ray Jenkins, a private eye once suggested by a fellow employee. He was a straightforward, tough former officer who focused on cheating spouses and had given evidence in countless dissolution cases. I positioned myself opposite him at his cluttered workstation and handed over my materials. No guesses, no suppositions, just a thorough compilation. He scanned my papers, the schedules, the money trails, the positioning info, the images, emitting a soft whistle of astonishment and admiration. "Miss," he noted, peering above his spectacles, "folks typically approach me with a vague idea and some fuzzy snapshots. You've delivered a full-blown accusation." "That's my approach," I answered, though seldom in my own affairs. "I'm not seeking your watching services. I require an expert evaluation. What strength does my case hold, and what more do I need?" He validated my instincts. The proof I had was strong, yet a shrewd legal mind might dismiss each element separately. The lodging visit, a work outing, the evenings by her building, assisting with a dripping tap. Motive, Jenkins emphasized, prodding the file with a sturdy digit. You require proof of purpose. Show they've intentionally schemed to mislead you and everyone else, and your stance solidifies greatly. It's beyond the romance. It's the plot. I departed his place invigorated with direction. My following visit was to Atlanta's premier separation lawyer, a keen, refined lady called Celeste Dubois. She examined my documents with icy precision. With surgical accuracy, this stands out as remarkable evidence. Kesha, she murmured, her tone soft yet steadying. Typically, people show up with Kleenex and blame. You've arrived with proof, both tangible and metaphorical. What should I anticipate? I inquired. A positive resolution, undoubtedly, she outlined. However, keep in mind that Georgia follows a no-fault divorce framework. The judge won't penalize them for the infidelity per se, from a legal standpoint. Their unfaithfulness carries little weight in splitting assets, unless you demonstrate monetary deceit. I'm not after courtroom retribution, I stated firmly, my tone unyielding like iron. Nor am I chasing extra funds. I need the reality recognized. I demand their story torn apart. I want all to view them as they truly are. Celeste Dubois regarded me intently for an extended pause. Then she flashed a subtle, perceptive grin. All right, she remarked, settling into her seat. Public scrutiny can deliver harsher verdicts than any legal ruling. Her statement hit like a bolt from the blue. A fabricated tale in the open called for an unveiled fact, and I grasped precisely the method and moment to unveil it. Bolstered by expert counsel, I expanded my probe. It extended beyond merely recording the liaison. Now, it aimed to reveal the motive, the plot, and the revelation surpassed my wildest nightmares. The initial significant revelations stem from our shared savings. I spotted a pattern of consistent matching deductions over the past 12 months. They masqueraded as cash pulls for home costs. Yet, upon closer scrutiny, I uncovered that they matched deposits of identical sums into a secret account Brandon had set up behind my back. He was methodically siphoning our joint prospects to fund his fresh start. This layered financial disloyalty atop the rest. It transcended a wound to my emotions. It violated our mutual existence, our alliance, visions of leisure, journeys, stability. He was robbing me of it all, yet the most shocking, heart-searing find emerged from his digital backups. As with many, his device synced all content automatically. Images, memos, chats. He wasn't tech fluent and had overlooked the whole thing. One evening, using a login I'd remembered for ages, I accessed it and unearthed their confidential exchanges. Scanning their words felt like dousing my spirit in corrosive fire. They disparaged me with vicious, belittling jabs. They ridiculed my faith, my job, my traits. They chuckled over my total unawareness. One dialogue seared itself into my memory forever. Brandon typed, "She's so immersed in her projects, she hasn't caught on at all. We could likely pull it off right on the kitchen table while she's at her desk clacking away, and she wouldn't even register the noise." Sasha responded within seconds. "Ha ha, she might even appreciate us taking charge. She was never cut out for true partnership regardless. Perpetually so grave. She was never cut out for true partnership." The phrase reverberated through the hushed space. Every instance I'd backed his grueling profession, handled our household, cheered his advancements, tended to him in illness, it reduced to that. A punchline, a flop. Absorbing their malice ignited a shift within. The detachment that had shielded me for weeks cracked, replaced by a sharp, illuminating fury. This went beyond treachery. It constituted deliberate psychological torment. It formed a joint scheme to erode my perception, to depict me as the dupe, to safeguard their self-serving facade of innocent romance. I carefully archived each chat, each money transfer, each falsehood. My collection transcended mere romance gone wrong. It chronicled a deliberate, vicious scheme of deceit and malice. Separation loomed unavoidable. Yet it would unfold by my rules, with public judgment soon to convene. Right as I wrapped up organizing my materials, my cell buzzed. A note from Mom. My pulse raced wildly. "Gather at home for a meal. Dad's turning 65 this Sunday. Brandon and Sasha are in. Join us, sweetie. Spare your dad any discomfort. Spare any discomfort." The sarcasm hung heavy enough to suffocate. Still, as I absorbed the words, a gradual smirk formed on my lips. They remained clueless. They'd unwittingly provided the ideal platform, the right crowd. Every player would gather under one roof, anticipating my role as the broken, pathetic spouse, the uneasy outsider in their budding romance. They assumed I'd stick to their plot. The following 3 days passed in a haze of sharp, concentrated groundwork. I ceased being merely a spouse or sibling. I became an advocate gearing up for life's pivotal hearing. I avoided cramming all the proof into a single bloated packet. That would have been chaotic, burdensome. Instead, I tailored my reveal. I crafted distinct, targeted messages for each vital relative. For Dad, appract as a no-frills, straightforward individual, I gathered all the financial proof. I paired the records from our shared savings account with those from Brandon's hidden one, pointing out the exact dates when he took loans from my father for a clever venture, even as he siphoned off our joint money. For my mother, who prized familial bonds more than anything, I emphasized Sasha's betrayal. I added screenshots of texts where Sasha pretended to assist Mom with chores just to rendezvous with Brandon. I also included the chat about the anniversary ploy, revealing how they exploited my mother's affection and faith as props in their deception. For my aunts, uncles, and cousin Germaine, I outlined the particular falsehoods directed at each, illustrating a consistent scheme of deceit that impacted everyone in the family. The crowning element was a comprehensive email, a thorough compilation delivered solely to my inbox. It encompassed the whole sequence of events, all the monetary and online proofs, plus a methodical, objective summary of how I uncovered it all. This served as my guide, my blueprint, amid the turmoil that my exposure would surely unleash. Sunday dawned, and I awoke enveloped in an odd, profound calm. No nerves or dread lingered, just resolve. I selected my outfit with deliberation, opting for a plain blue dress that Brandon had often said he adored. I arranged my hair neatly, added subtle makeup, and slipped on the pearl studs bequeathed by my grandmother. A subtle emblem of her resilience, a fragment of my lineage's fortitude. Right before heading out, my phone pinged with a message from Sasha. Simply verifying you'll be here this evening. Dad would be crushed if you skipped. We're kin, remember? No need to complicate things. Her offhand, breathtaking nerve almost shattered my poise. I inhaled deeply, fingers gripping the doorknob. Soon, their meticulously built illusion would collapse beneath the burden of undeniable, recorded facts. I responded with one word: coming. I pulled up to my parents' home precisely on schedule, bearing a homemade carrot cake, Dad's go-to treat, and a neatly packaged present. Crossing the threshold, the customary noises and aromas of the clan assembly enveloped me. For an instant, it resembled a typical Sunday. Yet I recognized the truth. This marked the close of a chapter. Brandon and Sasha had arrived earlier, positioned together on the living room couch. It was their boldest display yet as a pair in front of relatives. They were dipping a toe in, assessing responses. They glanced my way upon my entrance, their countenances blending sympathy and unease. My mother enveloped me in a firm, anxious embrace. "Oh, Keisha, I'm relieved you made it," she murmured. "This matters greatly to your father." The meal unfolded in excruciating forced routine. We savored Mom's signature roast. We chatted about neutral subjects: the forecast, my cousin's recent infant, Dad's upcoming retirement. I joined in automatically, like a specter amid the banquet, observing Brandon and Sasha share fleeting covert grins over the spread. They were biding time for their cue, the one they'd scripted and practiced. As Mom began distributing sweets, the moment arrived. Brandon cleared his voice and clinked his utensil on his wine glass. Silence fell across the space. It echoed the ritual he'd employed for every milestone in our shared history: our betrothal, our initial home, his recent career advance. Instances that once sparked joy in me now seemed like rungs in an extended, intricate fraud. He launched into his address, the very monologue I'd anticipated. Phrases on tough choices, on unforeseen romance, on the heart's uncontrollable whims. While he droned on, my phone vibrated softly in my bag. I peeked subtly. It signaled an issue with my email scheduler. Delivery glitch, system malfunction. A surge of raw alarm coursed through me. I inspected promptly. The precisely orchestrated messages, the core of my strategy, hadn't dispatched. A brief technical hiccup with restoration timeframe indefinite. Ice flooded my veins. My scheme depended utterly on those dispatches. Absent them, I'd appear precisely as they foresaw. The stunned, weeping spouse armed with zilch. No substantiation, no leverage. Merely a wild tale they could brush off without effort. Brandon neared the peak of his oration. His fingers now clasped Sasha's boldly over the surface. My relatives observed, faces shifting from astonishment to unease and compassion. Compassion directed at me. I had mere moments to choose. Retreat in defeat, or challenge him armed only with my assertions versus theirs. Both paths were intolerable. Then Plan B surfaced in my mind. I'd stashed my laptop in my bag as a precaution. The complete archive, the exhaustive report, stood prepped and structured. As Brandon delivered his closing line, Sasha and I have fallen in love, and every gaze swiveled toward me, bracing for my collapse. I was already in motion. With steady intent, I delved into my bag. I unlatched the laptop under the tablecloth. I accessed my mail application. I affixed the primary document holding each scrap of proof. And so I included every relative's email on the distribution list. As the awkward hush lingered in the dining room, I hit the send button. Then I lifted my eyes, locked onto my husband's assured stare, and addressed the stillness. "Everyone, please," I urged, my words carrying an unexpected sharpness that caught me off guard. "Look at your inboxes immediately." What followed unfolded like a perfectly timed sequence. Notifications pinged and vibrated across the table as my message arrived. Puzzled glances passed between them. My cousin Germain pulled it up first. His expression widened in shock while he scanned the contents. "I've shared some extra background on Brandon's big reveal," I stated evenly, watching as my husband's grin faded into growing dismay. "A few key documents I figured you'd all want to see." My dad checked next, his features clouding over like gathering thunder as he thumbed through on his device. "Holy crap," Germain muttered under his breath. My mom set her phone aside, fingers trembling, her gaze shifting wildly from Sasha to me, etched with incredulity and dread. What's going on? What have you done?" Sasha snapped, her complexion paling rapidly. Brandon groped for his cell. "It's the facts," I responded plainly. "The full story of your affair with my sister, all laid out neatly. Receipts from hotels, chat logs, bank statements. It's comprehensive." The atmosphere shifted to a deeper quiet. Not mere surprise this time, but a weighty, echoing hush of exposure. It shattered now and then with a sharp intake of breath, or a hushed expletive as another incriminating detail emerged. "Those chats are confidential," Brandon stammered at last, flicking through the messages in a panic, his scripted tale of forbidden romance crumbling swipe by swipe. "You had no business sharing them. This violates our privacy." "On the contrary, I absolutely did," I interrupted sharply. My tone turned detached and precise, like delivering testimony under oath. Those joint accounts were accessible to both of us. And much of this came straight from gadgets and profiles you routinely left unlocked in our house. It's basic digital investigation, Brandon. That's precisely what I do for a living. I turned my attention to the group. "You intended to drop this bombshell this evening," I continued steadily, my resolve unyielding. "You staged it all to steer the story. The forbidden romance, the tough choice, the tidy split. But you never anticipated I'd bring my own version to light." My mom regained her composure first. She faced my sister, ashen-faced, her words quivering with an anger I'd never witnessed from her. "Sasha, how could you betray your own sibling like that?" Sasha broke down, defaulting to sobs as she always had. "I didn't intend to cause pain. Things just evolved. Love doesn't follow rules." "Based on those exchanges, you've been scheming this for more than 2 years," Jermaine cut in, brandishing his phone, his features twisted in revulsion. "That's not accidental, that's deliberate plotting." The wave of outrage swelled. Aunt Vivian soothed my mom, who now stared at Sasha like an unfamiliar intruder. Uncle Walter, the former auditor, bombarded a dazed Brandon with questions about the money irregularities. The hidden savings account. Brandon mounted a final bid to salvage things, slipping into his doctor persona with a patronizing air. "Obviously, this is Keisha's method of coping with a tough change," he intoned dismissively. "She's spun this whole fabrication." "Enough, Brandon." My dad's command cut the tension like a blade. It was frigid and commanding. He rose, dominating the space. "My girl doesn't invent proof." The fight was finished. Reality had triumphed. Following endless weeks of compiling, reviewing, and readying, I had no more to add. The proof stood on its merits. I grabbed my bag and jacket, rising smoothly. "I think it's best if I leave," I murmured into the strained quiet. "Dad, I'm truly sorry to spoil your birthday meal." He was at my side without delay. "I'll see you to the door," he offered, his arm encircling my shoulders protectively. In the crisp evening breeze outside, he pulled me into a fierce embrace. "I had no clue about your ordeal," he rasped, thick with feeling. "Why keep it from us longer?" "I had to piece it together myself first," I replied, resting against him. "And I wanted the family to grasp it fully, not just believe me over them. They deserve to witness the reality." Sliding into my vehicle and pulling away, my muted phone suddenly glowed with a barrage of kin notifications. Outpourings of backing, astonishment, unity. I powered it down, savoring the tranquility. After half a year of turmoil, a profound calm settled over me at last. The conflict had ended. You see, as I left that home behind, escaping the ruins of my former world, a profound liberation washed over me. It marked the initial moment in ages I'd drawn breath without constraint. And I suspect many of you out there recognize that sensation all too well. If you're still tuning in to hear my tale, that touches me deeply. It eases the isolation I've felt through this ordeal. If it's not too much, I'd appreciate your support. Drop a like on this video and simply leave the number 1 in the comments below. It signals to me that you enjoyed it and shows you're along for the ride. Your encouragement lifts me more than words can say. So go ahead and post that one, then I'll wrap up how everything concluded. Come morning, I submitted the divorce paperwork. The proceedings moved along quicker than expected. Armed with that overwhelming proof, there was zero resistance. Brandon and Sasha's efforts to spin the story fell apart entirely. Not amid some chaotic back and forth of accusations, but via the steady, unflinching reveal of reality. The family cut them off. My devastated mom informed Sasha she'd require ages before facing her once more. Dad wouldn't even utter a word to Brandon. What they'd hailed as epic romance turned into a stark warning on betrayal. 3 months on, in the office of my lawyer, Celeste Dubois, as I inked the closing documents, she inquired whether the resolution brought me contentment. "Satisfaction isn't the word," I answered truthfully, gazing at my name on the sheet that sealed the end of our union. "It's more like a profound sense of resolution. I'd forged my professional path by exposing online traces of people's actions. I never dreamed my biggest investigation would chronicle the collapse of my personal world. Yet ultimately, my work's instruments became my path to redemption. Precise record-keeping accomplished what heated arguments couldn't. It swapped lies for undeniable facts. That very afternoon, I gathered the remaining items from our shared residence. The craftsman-style place, my former ideal haven, now resembled a tomb for faded recollections. Sorrow didn't grip me. I just sensed completion. I relocated to a fresh condo, a cozy sunlit spot boasting clear vistas across Atlanta's horizon. With dusk falling and bathing my bare lounge in warm amber light, I perched on the rug beside my computer. I launched file 734 for the final occasion. I scanned the directories brimming with hurt and disloyalty, then pulled the whole archive into the recycle bin. Afterward, I cleared it out. This marked the concluding move in a saga that had devoured almost 12 months of my existence. The dawn ahead promised the start of a fresh era, one I'd author solo, under my control. And as the urban glows flickered to life, a deep assurance washed over me entirely. I'd emerge stronger. Thank you. Thanks for sticking with my full account. Relaying it took courage, but opening up heals. If you face something akin, or if this struck a chord, drop your experiences below. You're far from isolated. And keep in mind, regardless of the shadows, you possess the resilience to uncover your reality. Stay well and catch you soon.